So the ceasefire is, I guess, still technically in effect, although for pretty much since the live hostages were released, Hamas has been continuously breaking it by not releasing the dead bodies of the hostages that have been murdered either on October 7th or since October 7th. And we are kind of in a dark on what's really about to happen. We have a few things happening. It looks like the yellow line, basically the about 50% of the Gaza territory that IDF currently holds, will become a bit more permanent or become a bit more visible. Basically, IDF will visually make it like a physical barrier or some kind of thing where they will let know Hamas that if they cross that, they will be shot. So that is becoming a bit more permanent. While some people might remember that yellow line was supposed to be a temporary thing, basically IDF pulls out the yellow line, and then more things happen, and then IDF, continuously pulls out further and further. While Hamas is basically stalling with the bodies, they are continuing to execute many of their enemies in Gaza. They continue to consolidate power. We keep hearing that maybe IDF or maybe Trump will go in, yet nothing seems to be happening. So this is what we'll discuss today. Welcome to the Daily Objective. Joining me today is ER Reichel from Israel. And ER, you haven't been on since the ceasefire has been declared. So just maybe before we go into the topic, what do you make of the last week basically or so since the ceasefire started?
I think there is only one kind of agreement you can get with a tyrannical aggressor such as Hamas, and that is the agreement that they will hand over all the weapons, of course, all the hostages, and then we will just put all the leadership on trial and take over the land. And this is called an unconditional surrender. You cannot do any other thing rather than unconditional surrender. You cannot demand any other thing. You cannot negotiate. You present them with a single choice, which is surrender or die. And until their surrender, you keep providing with the other side of the bargain, which is their death. This is the only language to have with a death cult that is explicitly devoted itself and its people to your annihilation. Having said that, I think it could have been way worse. And due to the nature of the Israeli culture and political nature of the idea, like the nature of the ideology of the Israelis, I'm really glad we got the hostages. Of course, I'm glad for the families. I'm glad for the hostages on the personal level and on the more national level of what you do as a state. I'm glad they're home mostly because this removes pressure from the government and the military to act in Gaza when necessary. Although this is a double-edged sword, because under the same argument, people can now say, "Oh, stop the war. There is no more living hostages in Gaza." So, like, people might have less motivation to do the necessary things in order to achieve a true Palestinian surrender. And it's not even defined as a Palestinian surrender; it's defined as Hamas's surrender. But it's Palestinism, this ideological political movement that is actually ought to surrender. And as far as people in Israel and in the West don't see it this way, it will not happen. So even if Hamas will, quote unquote, surrender, it's not an end for this affair with Gaza and with the quote unquote Palestinians. And there will be a lot of bloodshed in Israel until we would understand the nature of Palestinism. And as long as we don't recognize the nature of Palestinism explicitly, and as long as we do not condemn it and act against it, it's gonna come back and bite us, like and there will be a lot of bloodshed. coming from here and going on.
Somebody in the chat says they made a mistake not being honest from the beginning that hostages weren't the only priority. But they were honest. Uh, hostages and the destruction of Hamas were the only priority. It's not like Israel was like, hiding th that it's going to occupy Gaza. That was never the goal. It was never about the destroying the Palestinianism, right? It was never about destroying
Yeah.
the culture that made this happen.
I'm not talking about pressure from outside of Israel. I'm talking about pressure from within Israel. So when we went on this war after October 7th, basically we set up the goals of this war, which is basically leading to the defeat of Hamas, getting back all the hostages, and making sure the areas surrounding Gaza and the areas up north next to Lebanon and our great friend and ally, jokingly saying Hezbollah, and we went like, so we got the hostages back. We're still waiting for the bodies, and there is a lot to talk about it as well because it's another of Hamas's basically fraudulent nature. The north is safe. The areas next to Gaza are relatively safe, and it's all relatively speaking. Of course, the enemy still exists. So basically, there is one declared goal of the war left, and it's like most explicitly not done, which is the surrender of Hamas. And it's called like the dry language is like removal of any military and ruling capabilities of Hamas. So it could not rule the land and could not engage at war against us. And what my claim is that the Israeli government and army said they want to destroy Hamas for the record, but I don't think they're really committed to this purpose. And it's more like a lip tax. And the reason I'm saying this is because the Israeli leadership and military have occupation phobia. They cannot stand being defined as an occupier, even though in this case it's 100% justified and legitimate. When there is such a tyrannical regime attacking you, you should occupy this regime, occupy this piece of land, and then either re-educate or do whatever is in your interest. The people in such land has gave up the right by dedicating their life to your annihilation and by supporting a tyrannical regime. But the Israelis are afraid because of the Western morality, of altruism, of strong versus weak, of the big powers versus the weak and poor colonies. All of these premises and views made the Israeli military and government really not want to do the right thing, so they wouldn't be portrayed as the evil, strong occupier. And once again, I want to go back to my claim that let's say you engage war against against a free nation, and they occupy you, and for that reason you cannot vote, but you still have a right for your life and your property, and you're free to act rationally. So this is seen as a horrible oppression. But when people of the same race are oppressing themselves, like in Syria, like in Jordan, like in Egypt, like in Iran, that is seemed okay because this is the right for self-determination. So it's okay when one race oppresses itself, but it's not okay when a free nation is occupying the tyrannical aggressor, and then it's people actually getting more rights than they used to have under this regime. This is portrayed as wrong. So this is like one of my major key points of criticism against the political framework of the morality of the West. I think this is a very clear case of how wicked the Western popular view is.
Yeah, and I want to go into that a bit more later. But first, yeah, let's discuss more about the bodies. So basically, Hamas is claiming right now that they are unable to get to or recover any of the bodies of the hostages. They're claiming that either they do not have the resources, basically that they might be under rubble, they don't know how to get to them, and basically they are unable to get them. I've seen sort of like Al Jazeera reporting about how, Hamas is like really looking for the bodies. They really want to release them, but they have absolutely like right now this is a perfect situation for Hamas. There is no expectation for them to move on to the next points of the ceasefire deal, which will include foreign powers coming in, or some sort of like foreign coalition coming in to basically take over the occupation or sort of the ruling of Gaza. It would include disarmament of Hamas. And when we are in this situation right now, Hamas is able to stall and is able to consolidate power. I mean, every day we're seeing how like more and more people they are executing. They are, trying to wipe out all the opposition, all the other clans that stood up to them. And nobody's talking. I mean, you mentioned the sort of nobody talks about when it's the same color people are oppressing the same color people, right? And it's we are seeing, and I've seen this even like mainstream left-wing figures in America. There is that one picture, you've probably seen it, where it's like it's some sort of square and people are getting like executed on the spot and everybody's like recording it. And people have been like justifying it, saying, oh, these are the counter-revolutionaries. These are the people who stand up against the Palestinian cause. So it's okay to like do these executions. And I mean, imagine that being applied like anywhere else. Yet, now it's okay.
So on October 14th, I replied on X to the news item on Hamas executing people on the street. And I wrote this in Hebrew, I'll translate it on the go. I said, the Western world allows uh, institutionalized gangs to dismantle gangs, but the Western world forbids it from free nation. So if you're in institutionalized gang, you can kill everyone and the gang will allow it to you. But if you're a Western country, suddenly you're not allowed to actually fight against those who are actually deserve to be fought at. And an institutionalized gang is like Hamas on this context is basically the same as North Korea. Like it doesn't matter if you are recognized as a state or not. You are a tyrannical regime controlling, in fact, a geographic area. So it's just like Hamas rules Gaza, is not recognized as anything. They can do whatever they want, and nobody gives a them as I said. It's this racist premise of the right of self-determination of nation, the right to of self-determination of the collective, to deny the self of the individual, as I mentioned in previous shows. It's just BS, and this is one of the primary reasons for this double standard and the hypocrisy of the West, supposedly caring for Palestinians, but in essence, it's a hatred for the self, which is translates itself to hatred for the Jew, hatred for the successful, hatred for the Western, etc., etc. And I wanted to say another thing, but I forgot. So we were talking about the gangs and Hamas. Well, if it will come back to me, I'll say.
Sure. And yeah, let's go to. I mean, we've been seeing sort of again and again both Trump and Netanyahu talking about, if these killings continue, we will go back in. I think Trump almost every day talks about it. He said recently on Truth Social, his own social media platform, he said, if Hamas continues to kill people in Gaza, which was not the deal, we will have no choice but to go in and kill them. But something separately I've seen, apparently on Tuesday, he claimed that he had given Hamas approval for a period of time to carry out killings, asserting that the terror organization was targeting some very bad gangs. So, I mean, I like this is my biggest problem with this whole thing is like we keep jumping from somewhat of a we are sort of like imposing the deal on Hamas, like we're talking about like if they do not carry it we will go in, If the it doesn't go as we want to, we will go in. Yet we somehow consider Hamas like a partner for peace almost. Like these are the people we are making the peace with them. And if they, they need to take out some very bad guys. And who are the very bad guys? I don't think it's the Islamic Palestinian Jihad. I don't think it's the other terrorist organization. It's probably clans that stood up to Hamas. It's probably, and this is not some sort of like I'm coming in defense of these clans. It's they've supported Hamas for a long time, and it's simply less convenient for them right now. But yeah, what is this kind of mentality of like we allowed Hamas to take care of some very bad guys?
Well, I think Trump eventually spoke differently. And as you mentioned, he says, like, okay, if they keep executing people, we'll have Israel, like basically implicitly, he said Israel will have the American approval to go back into fighting. And well, so let's start with what is the proper thing to do. So the proper thing to do is basically we hold the yellow line in Gaza, which if you want to show a map, it would be great. Basically, there is so it's Gaza minus Rafah, minus some of its northern part, and minus some of its eastern part. So it's mostly the facilitated areas, the areas that IDF has not destroyed yet. It's the Gaza City and the camps southern to Gaza City. So this is like 50% of Gaza, but it's the most populated part. And what I think we should do is just like keep holding the yellow lines, nobody walks over, and then just lay an effective siege on the inner part until the Palestinians surrender, the political movement of Palestinianism surrenders and agrees for Israel to occupy the area. They hand in the weapons and we occupy the area and re-educate them. This is the only viable solution. Because let's say, best case scenario, Hamas surrenders and then all these Arab nations come into Gaza and they rebuild it and the Palestinians get to live there. What will prevent them from just holding those views and keep using their resources to destroy Israel? I don't care. It doesn't matter for me if the branding of the institutionalized Palestinian movement to destroy Israel will be called Hamas or Al Qaeda or Taliban or Fatah or whatever. It doesn't matter if it's called ISIS or Shmisis. Who cares? It's the Palestinian ideology to destroy Israel, and this war did nothing to the ideology because we never came against it explicitly. So whatever solution will come to Gaza, it will just be more of the same until Israel should explicitly say Palestineism is an evil ideology that ought to be annihilated, just like Nazism, and it's time to explicitly tell it to the people in Gaza and the people of the world, and to condemn this ideology and act against it. And as long as we don't do that, it doesn't matter. We can have 100 deals, and everybody will be happy. And the whatever foreign countries will come to Gaza and put their soldiers there and do whatever, and still every dollar going into Gaza will be invested in new methods to kill as many Jews as possible. So what are we doing here?
Yeah, I mean, many people think like if only we remove Hamas, it's gonna solve itself. But it's important to remember it's not Hamas that made like terrorism or made radical Palestinians or any of that. No, it's the Palestinians that created Hamas. It was their culture. It was people who were there who decided to go for Hamas. So simply removing Hamas from the equation doesn't actually change anything. It doesn't change any fundamental. Yeah, as you said, it's gonna be some different kind of group that would take over. If the sort of like deal holds and we actually do see some sort of like international coalition coming in again, imagine any other time we've seen sort of think of UNIFIL in Lebanon. They didn't do anything. Think of I mean, who educates Palestinians? It's not, or for a long time, it wasn't Hamas, it wasn't the Palestinian Authority, it was UNRWA. It was United Nations organization that educated the Palestinian people. And look how that turned out to be. So, yeah, it has to be I mean, I want to say like it could be some like Western nation, but I mean, even Israel, I don't think in the current state would really be able to do it. Again, Israel did occupy Gaza in the past, and it was that sort of much more focused on maybe like containment and just making sure it doesn't blow out, rather than actually trying to change the Palestinian people for the battle. So for the better. So yeah, I mean that's the oh, and just quickly, I cannot find like a good picture of the map with like city names. But yeah, just so people know, because when it's talked about like 50%, the is IDF is not like controlling like 50% of the population. Like absolute majority of the population is basically under Hamas, and I believe IDF is sort of like handling the outskirts. So all the big cities are basically under Hamas, as far as I understand.
Let me send you
Oh,
an illustration, let's say. Let me send it to you real quick. I can find you here.
all right, I still might need a second till I can get it. So
Send
let me just put
send
something
it to your
more.
WhatsApp.
Yeah, but I'm on my laptop and I don't have WhatsApp on my laptop. So I'll send it. Yeah, send it to me on email if you can. And while you're doing it, I'll just bring it one more thing. Yeah, talking about this yellow line a bit more. Um, so something that we will see happening, I think the defense minister of Israel has talked about basically making the line like actually physical. At this point, I think it's supposed to be just some markings, basically saying like, okay, if you go past this line, this is the IDF control zone. So one thing it can include is that even if there is technically a ceasefire, meaning no fighting should be happening, if Hamas crosses the line, if Hamas goes into the below, sort of after the yellow line, it will engage. It will try to destroy Hamas, and it really does seem. Uh, I said I think on Monday, then the next week is going to really define basically where this is going, and it does seem like it's slowly turning into basically new status quo will be that Hamas is controlling these big cities, and IDF is basically holding the yellow line. It will never pull out since the ceasefire will collapse, but it will also never go in. So maybe, yeah, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on this. Are we going to see, because I think this was the big question for the last week, like what will actually happen? And as of right now, this seems to me as the most likely scenario that basically Israel will continue holding onto these parts of Gaza, meaning it has a certain amount of buffer zone without having to commit to actually fully occupying it.
Well, what I see here is a weird chess game, and I would put Israel and the United States in one side, and I would put Hamas, Turkey, and Qatar on the other side. Now, there is a broader game, the axis of Russia, China, Iran versus the Western world, but if you just localize it to this conflict, it's basically Israel and the United States versus Qatar and Turkey using Hamas. And the thing is that the side of Israel and the United States, each is having their own interest and goals. So Trump, he wants to cut a deal. He wants to be to be seen as the peacemaker, the one who ends wars and end conflicts with his method of negotiation and force. And Israel wants to secure its existence, at least trying. And there is a big problem here because Turkey and Qatar will work very hard not to jeopardize their opportunity to annihilate Israel by actually taking over Gaza and using it as a pawn against it, like Iran did. So I don't know what's going to happen. Hamas is an unexpected player. They might find a way to keep the deal going. They might keep their fraudulent behavior and going too far to piss Trump off. And in the beginning, so basically this deal, I don't think Trump really cares about the details of the deal as much as he wants just to get it happening. So at the beginning, that's just my analysis, it's not based on mass, just like my hunch, I guess. So don't take it with a grain of salt. I think like in the beginning, like when Hamas kept breaking its it's hard for me to say Hamas's obligations because this is then a contradiction in terms, but on surface level, at least like he kept breaking his obligations. And in the beginning, Trump was like, yeah, let's keep this going. And now, like, I think what happened is that like the Israeli officials told his regime, and I think Trump's people as well, like, told him basically, this is not cool. This is a major breach. And then Trump trying to keep the deal happening, like starting to threaten Hamas. Although he wants this deal to happen, even with Hamas breaking it, he doesn't really, I don't think he cares so much. But obviously, Israel wants to get their bodies back and they want Hamas to disarm. So the two ways it's going to go is like Turkey and Qatar managing Hamas, making the deal move on, and Israel withdrawing more and more, and international forces going into Gaza. As of now, I think this is one of the worst case scenarios. This means Palestinianism is extremely likely to remain. And as you know, people act in accordance to their ideology. So we keep having those people next to us holding this ideology, dedicating their life to our destruction. Or if Israel, the best case scenario is Israel having moral clarity and courage and just, saying like, you broke the deal, we're laying a siege. This probably will not happen in the near future due to the morality of the West. And unfortunately, it's crippling down into Israel as well. But with the current situation, the best case scenario is Israel just basically saying, okay, we're going back to fight Gaza, holding the yellow line, fighting the armed, whatever faction, it's Hamas, Jihad, Islamic Jihad, Palestinian forces, whomever, just keep fighting them until they all surrender. And then we should occupy this area and re-educate them. But as I said, it's very hard for Israel to reach this decision because, as I said, they have occupation phobia. So this scenario is not very likely. So Israel is also trying to move on with the deal, as it seems like the best case scenario for the pragmatic politicians ruling Israel.
Yeah, and I'm really wondering because but when is the next election supposed to be in Israel? Is it next year or it might
Next
be?
year,
Yeah,
but it could be earlier.
Yeah, I know, but like yeah, it has to be next year. And I'm just wondering like how if it really is if it sort of like the whole ceasefire happens in the fact that the international forces pull in and IDF goes into Gaza. I think that's not even that's just a terrible state for uh yeah, basically for the for the sort of like the future of Israel. But even I'm thinking of like sort of the upcoming election because some like people we've kept hearing from screaming out Ben Gvir and Smotrich, they seem to be kind of like okay with this now. And I'm wondering how how they can justify that to their voters and how that will turn out in sort of the next election. But even sort of like Netanyahu, I'm not sure. I mean, although as far as I see, the sort of Israeli situation or sentiment right now is celebrating, is that this is a great thing that has happened, is celebration of Trump, of maybe not specifically of Netanyahu, but sort of a general this deal. So, yeah, as somebody in Israel, what do you think we will see? I mean, it's hard to, predict elections from like a year, but what do you think on both the so-called like the far right and their sort of like acceptance of this deal, especially if it would include the whole withdrawal of the IDF? Like for them, it didn't seem to be just about the hostages, but they seem to have kind of calmed down after the hostages are back.
Well, it's not possible to predict the elections because one thing that's going to happen is there are going to be a lot of changes in the parties.
Yeah.
It's not like a two-party system like in the States. There's going to be new parties. People from existing parties is very likely to move between parties. There's going to be a lot of left-wing parties disguising themselves as right-wing. A lot of politicians that have dedicated their political career to giving up Israel for the Palestinians, suddenly painting themselves as like we should defend ourselves against Hamas. So there's going to be a lot of changes, a lot of people trying to basically lie to the public, and there's going to be very hard, extreme campaigns in both sides, like campaigns trying to like mostly politicians from the left trying to disguise themselves as actually like more right wing now, because Israelis are more like they gave up the dream for peace with the Palestinians. Like they realize it's a fantasy detached from reality, and the right wing parties will try to expose those politicians campaigning for that. So the whole thing is going to be very unexpected and weird, and we'll have a lot of stupid turns. There is a cartoon show called BoJack Horseman, and there was one season with elections there, and there was this nominee that everybody was sure she's going to win, but then she said she didn't like avocado, and then she lost. So I think it's going to be something like that. Like it's going to eventually fall down on the most stupidest, dumbest thing that is unrelated to ideology or whatever. It's just going to be like a beauty contest of people pretending to want to give security to Israel, and unfortunately, and it's like in regard to what you said, like about the deal and the right wing parties and everything. So since we got back the hostages and we didn't give up this much land, I think the right wing could have taken it. Like it's this deal is seen by most Israelis as a good deal, because the alternative I mentioned is not considered as an option. Nobody considering like, yeah, we should define Palestinianism as evil and just fight until the surrender of this political movement and no negotiation. Nobody thinks this way, unfortunately. People are holding a lot of false premises or holding the right premises, but not explicitly enough to understand them and to advocate them. And I think currently the selling point is like, yeah, at any moment we can get back into fighting and then like get the goals. But if the deal will be successful, I have no idea how the right can handle that in Israel. There's going to be a lot of rationalization and pragmatic political juggling here. So it's really unexpected, like the way it will turn to be. I really don't know how it will go. There is a lot of power here, a lot of strong players and chaotic movements on the surface. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, that's what I mean, just one thing I would mention, because you mentioned the left and right, and something I've noticed about the way left and right are often defined is in every country it's usually a bit different, and it's usually around a specific core issue. So at least my understanding was the left and right divide in Israel specifically was about the Palestinian issue. Basically, do you believe in two-state solution, the left, or do you believe in either the status quo or some form of annexation of Judea and Samaria, or those kind of things, that you are on the right? And yeah, the two-state solution idea in Israel itself is dead. So basically, the left basically had to completely give up on that issue, and in a way lost heavily on that. So
yeah, so the left will have to rebrand itself, and it will go. So basically, when you look at the Israeli politics, so you have the Palestinian issue, you have the economic issue, right or left. You have sectorial politics like Haredim, which is a very big group of ultra-Orthodox Jews that have their own parties and they just make alliances. So the Likud was traditionally right-wing against, giving up Israel for the Palestinians. and for like a free market economy. The thing is that they have made an alliance with the Haredim, which is a sector that is reliant on welfare. So what we got is like a government trying to just like push away the Palestinian subject as possible, like minimize damages and give welfare to the Haredim. And then like we got like in 2022, we got a left-wing government that also like pushed away the Palestinian issue for other reasons, because it was a very fragile government, and it didn't have the Haredim, and they tried to free up the economy a little bit, so it all got mixed up. And then like the issue was about judicial reforms, and I just want to mention for context, Israel has no constitution, so there are two major players fighting for unlimited power. So it's basically the government versus the Supreme Court, each trying to get unlimited power. The government also is basically mixed with the parliament. So the parliament and the government come from the same voting system. So I just see them as one entity. Actually, the most accurate way to define it is the judicial system versus the coalition, because the coalition rules both the parliament and the government. There is no constitution, no checks and balances, no true principle defined in the country, and both sides are fighting for unlimited ultimate power. So the left wing is on the judicial side of this fight, and the right wing is on the side of the coalition, because they basically consistently ruled the coalition for the past decade, besides a period of 2 years or a little bit more. So this is going to be probably about it. It's going to be about the war, but not in the essence of like, oh, we need to give up ourselves for the Palestinians, but like, you know, the left wing is going to say the right wing ruled and failed. The left wing in Israel, which likes to like, so there is I'll give you an example for something that happened. There is Bezalel Smotrich, is very right wing, religious. He hates Palestinians for justified reasons. And he says, basically, since we are fighting in our fight against the Palestinian Authority, trying to gain legitimacy, he said it before October 7th. He says Hamas is an asset in the context of fighting the Palestinian Authority from being recognized. Now, this view is horrible, is wrong. We should fight Hamas. We should fight the Palestinian Authority. We should do it with pride, because we are the nation that respects human rights, and they are a political entity aimed against the concept of self, against life as a man. It's about the destruction of men, both internally and externally, and we should fight those political entities. But us not having the required courage, us having the wrong premises, our most right-wing politicians have actually said they see Hamas as an asset, but it was in the context, it was a very poor saying, but it was in the context of fighting Palestineism. And the left, which basically supports the Palestinian Authority, takes this horrible saying already, but put it in a reverse context. They criticize him as saying, oh yeah, he supports Hamas because he doesn't like the Palestinian authorities. And look, due to his view, we got October 7th. And when you put it in the context of people from the left wing of Israel saying this is completely absurd. Because yes, of course, saying Hamas is an asset, it's a horrible, poor saying even before October 7th, because this is you know what Hamas is. But what they say is, oh, we should have give everything to the Palestinian Authority, and then everything will be all right. So by the fact that the left still bring this poor saying up, just show how broken their ideology is. Like they still, in a sense, implying that it's possible to have deals with people holding the ideology of Palestineism, the ideology of self-destruction and the destruction of Israel. And it just completely, and this is just an example of how shallow the discussion is. Instead of actually talking about defining the Palestinian ideology, it's about people, bringing other people saying out of context and trying to build a narrative that has nothing to do with reality. So it's very frustrating in this term.
We have a super chat from Jonathan and a super chat from Bonnie. Thank you so much. Shiva. With that, yeah, any last thoughts from you and where can people find you?
Thank you all for watching. I am an associate in the Ayn Rand Center Israel. Please visit www.aynrand.org.il/about. And I am the writer of the upcoming book, Victory Now. The book is ready and is about to be launched on Amazon in the next few weeks. You can go to www.victory.now, and there is a little Google form you can fill to get an email when the book is out. And you can also support us in this website. So please visit www.victory.now. And once again, thank you very much.
And people will be able to find all that in the description. So with that, thank you, Iyar, for joining me today. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode of the Daily Objective. Until then, bye-bye.